Welcome back to another Get Geekish podcast. I'm Bino. That's Derek over there. How you doing this afternoon, evening, whatever day it is, time of day it is?
I know, right? The time change threw everybody off. I'm all right.
We decided that we're going to talk a little music again this week because Derek said he was jamming out to some Less Than Jake or something this week and thinking of how much fun ska music is. We thought we'd talk a little bit about the history of the ska genre, some of our fond memories of it, and maybe a few of the new bands that are carrying that flag around for that genre.
Well, what's funny to me, too, is I, just on the crash course of the ska, I didn't realize that it's been around as long as it has. Because to me, like, you know, ska to me was like peak, mid to late 90s and some odd early 2000s.
Yeah, kind of kicked off in the late 80s and then through the 90s got pretty big, and then early 2000s started, going downhill a little bit as far as popularity goes. And most people that have heard of ska, that they think of bands from that time frame.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was sitting here looking at this, like ska itself as a musical genre that originated in Jamaica in the late 1950s, and it was the precursor to the rocksteady and the reggae. So that's kind of cool. Like, without ska, we wouldn't have some of the reggae sounds that we have now.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to throw this out there because I know there's a lot of very how am I gonna say this? A lot of people that are really into certain styles of music, and I'm not a historian or an expert of any kind, so I don't want to get any hate mail because we're confusing ska or reggae or two-tone versus modern ska. Like, we're just talking about it in a generic, like we do with everything else. I like ska music.
Yeah, so basically I think what we're going to touch point on is Ska Punk. Mm-hmm. Because ska itself was, combined elements of the Caribbean into calypso with the American jazz and rhythm blues. So it's characterized by the walking bass line accented with rhythms on the offbeat, which again started in the late 1950s, and then it kind of evolved. And then come the 80s, some punk bands were like, you know what? Let's incorporate some brass into this. Let's get some flavor.
I had a theory about that because especially in that time period, a lot of kids that were getting up into the punk and skate bands were not necessarily the most popular kids.
True.
Punk music was still pretty, fringe on the outside of it, and most of those kids were not the most popular ones, and a lot of them were, carrying around big band instruments after school. So they wanted to start a band. Their cool friends got a guitar. The cool friends got some drums. They're like, I got this trumpet. Let's see what we can do, huh? Oh yeah, I play the alto sax. Come on, let's see what you got.
Hey, you kid with the trombone. I got an idea.
We're going to have angsty, angry music, but you need to make it sound happy.
Right? And that's the thing, too, is like you listen to some ska songs, some ska punk songs, and it's just like, it's upbeat, it gets you moving, and then you listen to the lyrics like, oh, okay. I mean, like, you could say that about a lot of pop songs, There's been a lot of them that are kind of just like, beep, beep, beep. You're like, yeah, you actually listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh. But I mean, I don't know, like, what was your first introduction to ska? Because I'm curious.
I honestly think the first times I got into stuff was probably the Aquabats and Less Than Jake and Real Big Fish.
Okay.
Real Big Fish I discovered for myself watching back in the day in Colorado. They had, what was it called? It was a TV show that was on public access that was a punk rock music video show. That I can't for the life of me remember what it was called. Yeah, but it was on like once a week at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was nothing but punk and ska music videos put together. I gotta find out what that was called. That's gonna kill me. But I remember I saw that video for Everything Sucks, and I was enamored. And then within a few weeks or months of me seeing it on there, it started getting played on MTV and they just kind of blew up and became the next big thing for an album or so. The Aquabats, it was simply their album cover. I was browsing through CDs over at Angelo's CDs and Tapes in Longmont, and there was this band, and they were all wearing bright green spandex onesies with like weird hats on. I'm like, this looks fun. What's this all about? And I got home, and I didn't know what to expect because I got to put it in the CD player, and my brain goes to, what is this, like reggae or something? And then I just kept listening to it, and it was so happy that it was just infectious. You just put it on, and you're instantly like, huh, okay, yeah, all right, this is good.
Well, I would definitely say it's not for everybody. You know, some people aren't fans of brass instruments. Mm-hmm. You know, I think my first introduction to ska was the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Back in the day, I'm pretty sure I heard them on the radio, and I was like, even in there, it was like one of those ones. Was like, what is this? What, you know, played on the.
It's just off enough that if you don't get it, you're not. It's not gonna.
Right, and it's sitting there. I'm like, what is this? So, and I'm not a fan of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones by any means, and I don't listen to them. But it was one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know what this is. And then fast forward a little bit later, you know, we had MTV and VH1 that actually played music videos, and Fuse TV, and I think that's how I found Less Than Jake. You know, Science of Selling Yourself Short. You just like listen to that. It's like, okay, you got Five Iron Frenzy. You're like, okay, like what is this? This is kind of good.
It was beyond kind of good. I will honestly say that probably of the concerts I've been to in my life, there's a handful of ska shows that are probably in the top 10, maybe even top 5 concerts I've ever been to as far as how much fun I had at them.
Well, and some of the ska shows go hard too, don't they? Like with the mosh pits and stuff? Like people just going crazy?
Yeah, but they were different. One of the best ones I ever can think of is Skakin Pickle at the Fox Theater in Boulder. And it was, the whole bottom place was filled as a giant mosh pit, but you know, punk rock mosh pits, people are throwing elbows, knocking each other out, you know, punching, kicking, shoving, generally showing things off like that. But you got into the ska pit, and everyone's just skanking and jumping up and down, and it became this crowd of 500 people just jumping in unison that you couldn't walk. If you were in that crowd, you were squished together so that you were just going up and down, even if you weren't actively trying to jump, and you were just being passed around like it was a giant washing machine, and it was just nonstop, and you weren't getting hurt. Nobody was pushing each other, hurting each other. It was just, come on down, let's dance.
I think the worst that you'd get out of that is somebody sweating your mouth.
Oh, yeah. And then the first time I saw the Aquabats in concert was also at the Fox Theater, coincidentally. And that was one of the ones I went to, and me and some of my buddies went back, and when I came out of the show, I had my brand new Aquabat shirt that I bought that night, and in one night, it had already got all the little rolls from the fabric, like it, you know, been drug through the laundry, and it was soaked through and through, top to bottom, like workout machine type thing. Just my shirt was not damp in spots, was just wet head to toe. Like, that was the coolest concert I've ever seen in my life. And they put on, I mean, back then they put on a huge show too, especially for a small venue and a little no-name band. They had all kinds of props and costumes and stage tricks and pyrotechnics and fried chicken in a box, and you know.
Well, so let's cover a couple things here. You said skankin'. Mm-hmm. What is that for the kids? Because I mean, obviously that means something different these days.
Does it?
I'm pretty.
What does it mean now?
Well, I mean, never mind.
Okay, I'm just gonna look up the Urban Dictionary just so I can know. I don't want to be too out of touch for it, because
I just, in my head, the first part of that word means something different. But you used it. You used it as what does it mean?
It's just a dance. Skanking is a form of dancing that's usually around ska punk, reggae, drum and bass kind of musics, and it was easy to do because you didn't have to do anything. There was people that had their very specific ska dance, but you just moved your arms and shot back and forth. And there's some people who got really into it and had very specific things they did, but it's just one of the easiest forms of dance to do. It just kind of resembles swinging your arms, elbows exaggeratedly while moving your feet a little bit. Like, that's all you gotta do. You just say, look at me, woo, woo, woo.
So basically jazzercise.
Sure, yeah, if you wanted to.
Two, we brought up the Aquabats. Actually, you have brought up the Aquabats. Don't you? Aren't you a card holder?
Oh yeah. Well, when I found the Aquabats, I got their first album. Then when their second album, The Fury of the Aquabats, not their first album, The Return of the Aquabats, came out, I joined their fan club where I had my parents, gave my parents some money, and they wrote a check, and I mailed in my thing to be a part of the Aqua Cadet fan club.
As a tie into our last podcast where you had to mail in stuff, this is a perfect example of that. So,
and I got my own Aqua Cadet card, which I still have to this day. Didn't give me anything, but it was fun to have. And their little merch store, you could buy the anti-negativity helmets, which are basically, like neoprene hats and goggles and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, the love for the Aquabats continued. They tried to do their own cartoon show. It's kind of failed miserably, but we saw them at Comic-Con here in Denver a few years ago. They performed the opening ceremonies. They were fantastic. You got the Bat Commander to sing me happy birthday during COVID year. I mean,
yep. I mean, yeah, this is, so, we were talking about ska bands that are still doing stuff. They're still doing stuff. They had like a Halloween special or something like that.
Yeah, they're still doing some cartoon stuff and entertaining things, and they've changed the members up a little bit, and they're a little less ska focused. They still do some ska stuff, but they're now just kind of like a synth pop for a lot of things for it. But they still wear spandex outfits, and they do it for the kids.
So let's flash back here. We got the mid 90s, early 2000s. It was actually a very interesting year for music because ska was kind of at the forefront of the pop punk scene, if you want to call it that. Also, you had that weird thing with swing music coming back.
Yep.
So and those two kind of meshed because I'm pretty sure there was the Cherry Pop and Daddies.
Leave it to the late 90s that punk, ska, reggae, and swing music all became interchangeable and acceptable to be at the same shows and the same bands.
I was gonna say, because wasn't there shows where it was 500 Frenzy and Cherry Pop and Daddy? It was just something. It probably wasn't that, but it was something along those lines where you had that swing renaissance type of punk band with the ska punk band. It's just it was a good year to be in a ska band.
Oh yeah,
I mean, hands down.
The other thing that ska bands have going for them is they took up so much freaking space on the stage. And when they went on tour, when you're like, okay, we'll give you $500 to play a show, it'll be like, we got 14 guys in the band, though. Meanwhile, Chris Carrabba, singer-songwriter of those, just cashing all the way to the bank. Whoa, me and a sound guy. This is all mine.
Yeah, looking at just one picture of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones over here, there's 10 guys in the picture, so...
And if I recall, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, because they're bands that I like a few of their songs, but I was never huge fans of them. But they were one of the bands that their tour schedule, they were playing, I think it was 320 to 340 shows a year.
Yeah, they were.
So you're talking they had a day a week off, and they were playing shows every night, just nonstop.
Well, and I know too. Every once in a while, it was either them, Real Big Fish. So Real Big Fish would come through Colorado and would sell out shows instantly. I don't know if that's still the case. I don't know, and that's the thing with ska came in hard. That wave hit hard. It was kind of building up, and then it just went, and then it kind of dissipated. After the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006, they kind of started. They're still there, but not as on the forefront.
They weren't as prominent. They became a little bit of a laughing stock almost. It was oh yeah, people still like ska, huh? Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah, I still play by Less Than Jacob. What are you talking about?
I mean, I can go through some of my favorites on here. I mean, the Specials were an old classic band that they had a couple of case songs now that I wasn't huge into. Operation Ivy, they were more punk than anything else, but they certainly had enough ska influence in there to keep them going. For mainstream, Sublime had some definite vibes to it, but it's still hard for me to consider them a ska band.
I was going to say they were more reggae rock.
Yeah, which is tough, but people kind of lumped it together, so I just rolled with it. Skankin' Pickle, a great band. Voodoo Glow Skulls, some of the best horn players I think I've ever seen. Against All Authority, if you like the crust punk ska music, they were angry at everything and the fastest, most angry ska band you could probably find. Dancehall Crashers, I think they made way for a lot of the female-fronted bands. Thanks to Death Cell Crest, I think is where we got Save Ferris from, and even the beginnings of No Doubt. Already mentioned Less Than Jake, Homegrown from California, Mustard Plug, Falling Sickness, Slapstick,
Goldfinger.
Real Big Goldfinger. They're another one too that they were not a
they dabbled
ska band, but they dabbled in a few things. Even the Offspring had a couple songs that were ska-ish.
Slightly Stupid. I forgot about them.
The Scholars, or Telegraph before the name of their lawsuit, Link 80.
Wait, the lawsuit. Hold on, what?
There was a band they were called the Scholars, but then they had to change their name to Telegraph after they put it on because there was a different ska band called Isaac Green and the Scholars, even though Scholars was spelled differently, and there was a whole hullabaloo of confusion and people getting upset about stuff. So there's some name changes, and it happens. Let's see, and that's Edna's Goldfish, one of my most underrated ska bands that came around. Mad Caddies, Penny and the Loafers, the Hippos. They broke up way, way, way too soon. Slow Gherkin, My Superhero, Bucko 9, Common Writer, Distorted Penguins. I voted for Kodos, Royal Rangers.
That's another thing about ska
Toasters.
bands is the names. If they weren't like Less Than Jake or Real Big Fish or but even Real Big Fish, like most of the names had kind of like a pun. Like even the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Real Big Fish. It was one of those ones like the names were.
To me, the whole genre about it was just not taking anything too seriously. It was they played with punk bands. These punk bands were super serious, and they're just like, we got horns, and we're gonna think, whatever, we're gonna dance. And
we got horns and a message. It's your choice to listen.
And some of them were, super political or had things like that. But even the way the music presented itself was just so much different than a lot of other genres. It felt like. I still think to this day there's a meme that is famous that sums up ska very, very perfectly. It's one of the Know Your Meme ones. But it was, I once heard ska described as what plays in a 13-year-old kid's head when he gets extra mozzarella sticks. And is that not a great description of it?
What? Oh, man. So, looking at, if we can trust Wikipedia, they have a decline from the 2000s to early 2010s and the revival, late 2010s to present. I would say that revival is kind of, You have Goldfinger released an album in 2017, some other ones here and there, and then like the last one was the Suicide Machines released a new album in 2020, March 2020. That's like the most recent one, but other than that, like it was kind of like some here and there type of thing. Like what do you think caused the decline of ska? Was it like we talked about, the revolution of the pop punk era and the screamo kind of taking over, giving something new, or like
I think the screamo took over to it because we're going on full generalizations and stereotypes here.
No, that's
the emo music went very much the dark, emotional, angry, brooding, gothic. It kind of went down that path. And you can't ride that line while you're singing about pizza parties and Play-Doh and skanking. Like it doesn't work. And same thing, the ska didn't necessarily get along with the metal crowd as far as going hand in hand with it. The punk thing went towards the emo thing. The pop thing, like No Doubt, took it and went completely away. They started off as a ska band and became the antithesis of a ska band. It just wasn't cool. They were always maybe that's why I identified it with so much. They were always just kind of this odd duck of a genre that could fit with these other ones, but not completely. We could hang with reggae, we could hang with rock, we could hang with this, we could hang with pop, but never really fully absorbed into any one of them. And it just kind of ebbed and flowed, and there's still diehard ska fans out there. But as far as the mainstream, it became, this is really great too. This is, and it also didn't help that a lot of not great ska bands didn't sound very good, and they sounded very much alike.
I was gonna say there got to a point where I mean, Less Than Jake and Goldfinger kind of like, and Goldfinger was the one again that kind of dabbled, but then went more the punk pop punk route. But I mean, Less Than Jake kind of set themselves apart because they had the two singers, one very distinct voice for the one guy. But you're right, like you could take some ska and like some of them just kind of sound the same, and I think that's maybe why I didn't get into Real Big Fish or the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, because it all just kind of blended together, kind of like jam band music. And maybe that's what their downfall was, because I mean, they, for a while, like you said, and like we did in our previous podcast about the emo music, is in the early 2000s, emo music, pop punk, and ska all kind of were like up there. But ska didn't really do anything different to set themselves apart, and I think that's kind of why maybe they fell apart. Like you said, they had their niche crowd. They had that group, and they all kind of sounded the same. Where at least, yeah, with pop punk, some of it sounded the same, but there was like every once in a while they also had the backing of major studios to throw money at them. And ska, I think that's why we don't really hear from Five Iron Frenzy or Less Than Jake.
I think the industry treated ska like a one-genre wonder.
I think that's what, as I was talking, I was like, okay, I think we hit the nail on the head. It was the industry. It was the labels sitting there going, okay, you put out some great hits for us in the mid-2000s, early 2000s. You made us some money. We're going to go with this young, upcoming pop punk band because there's 3 of them, and they don't have horns, and the kids don't like brass.
Yeah, I think that's part of what you mentioned. I think there's a lot of people that are have a little bit of aversion to brass in music. Like, even have to be in the music for brass sometimes. And if you get that's already a little bit of a polarizing part of music, and that's like the main hook of the songs you have. Like, you got an album, even if you've got 5 or 6 different horn players, like, oh, you love that trombone solo, huh? Well, we got an alto sax one for you next. You like both of those? How about the trumpet? Like that, and you're like, if you're not a horn geek, then they all just kind of sound the same, even though they have their own nuances and own different things they can do that make themselves sound amazing. But to somebody that doesn't know much about how to play or what they're actually doing, like, yeah, it's horns. I get it. Just like the last song and the song before that, whatever.
Like I said, a lot of people probably lumped them into the jam band aspect because, to me, jam bands, and there's nothing against them. I know a lot of people like them, but jam bands to me is just one continuous song that never ends. And some people probably feel that way about ska.
And I feel that way about a lot of the old stuff. Like when I was into a bunch of the Ska Punk stuff, a lot of the old two-tone ska was really tough for me to get into. A lot of the old things like the specials and stuff, they did kind of equate to jam bands because it was really, really slow compared to a lot of the Ska Punk ones. And it was just... It just goes on for 5 or 6 minutes, and there wasn't like a hook in a lot of them.
I guarantee you somebody right there heard you doing that and going, okay, get to the wrap it up. And that person right there, ska's not for you.
So I looked up some of the modern ska artists because I like to, feel completely out of touch with reality now. But Blunt Mag listed the 6 modern ska bands still flag the flag. This was written in August or July of last year. They put the Interrupters on there. Very intrigued by the Interrupters. Their Billie Eilish cover is probably one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life.
Nice.
The Popes of Chilitown. I have not heard them yet. They're from the UK. I'm going to have to listen to them. Loin Groin. Australian ska. Another one I'm going to have to add to my list now. The Resignators. And the... Pirate Ska Rebellion, pirate-themed heavy metal ska. Okay, I'm gonna have to listen to this too. Okay,
pirate-themed heavy metal ska. That's interesting, right there.
And the Bennies, and I'd heard of one of those bands, and I'm gonna have to put all 5 of those on my list to go check out now. There is also a fun YouTube channel. I think it's called the Ska Tune Network, and it's this group of people or group of musicians, and they do nothing but just cover songs and make ska versions. They do video game songs, they do pop songs, stuff like that. And some of them are okay, some of them are great, but it's a great way to have, especially if somebody's not into ska, it's a great way to get a little taste for it because you can hear a song just done in a ska version of it. And you get, oh, okay, yeah. Because I feel like that's how you can get, if you like ska and you get somebody else into it, you get a bunch of good ska covers of songs they already like, and then get them used to the horns, and then you can kind of wean them off into some of the good stuff on the sides.
One thing that I'm sitting here looking at this is like, as of 2019, other artists that continue to tour and or put out music on a regular basis include Kill Lincoln, Omnigon, Big D and the Kids Table, Five Iron Frenzy. So they're still doing stuff. That makes me happy.
Yeah, they just had a new album last year, I believe. I think I got
the Mad Caddies, Voodoo Glow Skulls, Joystick, Mike Parks, the Bruce Lee Band, Tape Girl, Noise Complaint, Skatsuni, Miku, Monkey, and Bailey Who. So there's some right there. And if I was to say to somebody who's never heard ska or wants to, hear what it's about, maybe listen to Five Iron Frenzy and kind of go in that way. Five Iron Frenzy or Less Than Jake. I think that's some of the milder ones, right? Like,
well, I don't know if you even say mild necessarily, because you can find some. I mean,
that's true. That's some deep cuts. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay.
I think it just depends that you just got to take a smattering of it all. If there's a band you're listening to and you don't like them, don't power your way through, because if you don't like a couple songs, you're probably not going to like the rest of them. Just go to the next. If you listen to 3 Less Than Jake songs and you don't like them, try something else, because you probably don't like Less Than Jake. But because I looked up on Ranker, they put to the greatest ska bands of all time, and I think the general public might be off on some of these. Because their top one is the Specials, then the Madness, Toots and the Maytals, the Scotalites, Desmond Decker, the Selector, Bad Manners, the Beat, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Hepcat, Toasters, Prince Buster, Jimmy Cliff, and like all the Fishbone. All those are ones that I would equate more towards the two-tone, the older ska, the much more slow. If you like reggae type of music, this kind of ska might be much more your style. But if you're into hard, fast, energy punk rock, a lot of those bands are not going to fit the bill for it.
I was going to say, that's a weird list, but I guess if we're just going ska, then yeah. But if we're going ska punk, then no.
Yeah, because then you get down into the 15s and 20s. You got Streetlight Manifesto. You got Less Than Jake.
What?
They even put Rancid on this list. Rancid had like a handful of songs, and they're on the list of ska bands. Real Big Fish, Operation Ivy, Sublime, Pie Tasters, Goldfinger, Interrupters, Mustard Plug, Glow Skulls. So
that
you get down
far
the
down?
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
So in my humble opinion, this list is a little off, but again, if you're talking to a whole bunch of the diehards, what ska came from when it first was invented, I'll give them that's where that came from. But for the ska punk music that we fell in love with in the 90s, this list is definitely
wrong.
Not my cup of tea, we'll say. How about that?
You're wrong.
Don't want to say wrong, but
But if you made it this far into the podcast, we definitely gave you some, and you're still wondering what ska is. We've given you some good names.
Yeah, you've got a whole playlist to go for it. And you're not alone, because I've even found 4 or 5 bands that I'm very excited about going to find out to see if they have some good songs now.
Are we going to bring back ska?
Did it ever really leave us, though? It's always been here.
That's true. That's true.
If it's got an upbeat, it can be there.
Oh, man.
I just wish... See, this is what I need to find. One of the great things about ska bands was I found so many of them by going to random shows and record shops and finding things about them, and I don't have time to do that near as much as I used to, because I was looking at my music list, and the last ska albums I have was the Five Iron Frenzy album from 2021, the Less Than Jake album from 2020, the Aquabats album from 2020, and then after that we're going all the way back to 2018, then 2017, and then 2014, 2013, 2012. So the 2010s, I found a grand total of like 15 ska songs I liked that came out then. Not saying they don't exist, I just never found them.
And also on that too, like you said, and I really hate to say this because this is going to kill my soul a little bit. We found a lot of great music from no-name bands that were openers for other bands going to shows. we're getting older, so it'd be a little harder to skank at a ska band or a ska show now for 3 hours and make it through.
Skank till your back gets sore. Yeah, what's about 4 songs? And like I said, I think that like we touching back to what we talked on earlier, that it's really tough to find ska bands too, because it was a really, really popular thing. They were everywhere, but just logistically, it's really tough to take a whole ska band on tour. Mm-hmm. And some of those little clubs and venues, they're like, oh, you got 8 people? Well, some of them are going to have to be like backstage because you can't fit 8 or 9 people on the stage we've got. And think of syncing up the schedule. Musicians in general don't make a whole lot of money unless they, get that lottery ticket somewhere along the way, and trying to coordinate the schedules of 7 to 9 people to play shows and practice repeatedly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got everything stacked up against it.
Mm-hmm. And I just don't know if there's that affinity for the brass instruments anymore, unless you're in an orchestra. So,
yeah, they're fun, but you don't like throw your fist in the air and just horn solo, woo! Maybe some people do. I mean, they're trying. There's been a bunch of the 80s saxophone solos coming back in music lately.
Yeah, that's really weird. That's throwing me off.
Kenny G must be happy now, but
oh man.
But now that we've been talking about this, obviously, if you're listening still, you have probably been a fan of ska. But what are some other great ska songs or ska bands that we should find out about? Because I'm always looking for more.
I was going to say there's a lot of them that I'm sure we don't even know about. Some people's like, you haven't heard of, and we're like, no, but now we have. Thank you.
Yeah, like spread the love. So go to the Facebook page and start slapping those YouTube links up there.
Oh, man. Sorry, I'm just over here skanking.
I'm just glad you're not imagining me skanking, because I can't imagine,
I mean, I did when you described the story of you just coming out looking like you jumped in a swimming pool. So, thanks for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Ska also had a pretty good vibe that went with it. That was not, again, super popular. They had a lot of very interesting hats.
Oh my gosh, the fashion! We didn't even touch on the fashion.
Yeah, the fashion. I mean, I also saw a ska band one of the time I went on. I was in a scooter club, so we had a lot of. They called them the mods, and the mods generally liked the mod music and the ska and the two-tone stuff. And there's generally a lot of rockabilly vibe. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's another one we forgot about, the spinoff.
Yep.
Rockabilly was another one that you could go with ska, but not quite 100% on there. And you get bands like the Horror Pops and Necromantics and stuff like that are living ends to toe in that line of, it's kind of, okay, yeah, but not highly. Man.
I was gonna say, here we are at the very tail end of our podcast, and
I can just keep going.
The ska fashion itself is probably another 30-minute discussion.
Mm-hmm. Colored hair, piercings, leopard print vests, pegged pants.
It did make sense.
No, it was, again,
it went with the music.
Mm-hmm. It was just it. You had to have the right shape to fit in that hole, and I loved it, and I still love it.
Oh man!
All right, well, let us know ska music. We didn't talk too much about the history, but there's some great articles linked to in the blog. You can read a little more about it, because it's probably better you do that, since we're not historical experts. So you can go read about those. There's a great one from, I think, Grunge is a good write-up about how ska came to be. So go check that out. GetGeekish.com, and let us know some ska bands that we need to find out about, or ska songs that we should love. Let us know in the comments at Get Geekish. And hey, thank you for listening.
Keep on skanking.
If that means anything else, we're going to get in trouble.
Yeah. Keep on dancing.
Skank dancing. Skank dancing. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk at you next week. Hey, thanks for listening. We truly appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Find us on social media at Get Geekish. And if you want more podcasts, we got plenty of them.